Hi, good to see you. It all starts with a list.
I
That's a
know.
great way to start.
You and I connected because I am a here, total list person,
I love it.
total list person. It's kind of everywhere, right? I have them everywhere. I need one Paula list book, but I really do believe in them because they just keep me organized. And then, that's where you started everything. You were a producer or still a producer of
Yeah.
life. But talk a little bit about your books, first of all.
Yeah, the books are about list making and how to use lists to be more productive and successful. And, my role as a television producer for years was, keeping that show on the rails, making sure that things were going the way that they could. And lists were really essential for that. But I also noticed there were ways to also use them in my everyday life that made me much more efficient. And it wasn't cheating. A lot of times people think, oh, if I make a list and I should be able to remember this and all that. The list, it goes beyond just to-dos. It's really intention setting. And it can be something really small, like you have to pick up almond milk, or it can be something really big, like you need to rethink your life and figure out what it is that you want to do next, right? It's the same vehicle, right? It just maybe different things are on it.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I have them kind of all over the place. Maybe I'm a little overdoing it, but I do have different lists. I have like a me list of the things I have to do for whatever. And then I have the long-term list, right? And then I have a list of people I should call and stay in contact with and my dreams. But it seems to work for me, but I'm hearing so many people now saying the words that you and I've said so long, what's coming up next, which is why I called it this because I feel like we are all trying to figure out what is next out there. And a lot of people are moving into that next chapter and that next career, or they're doing the pivot. And I think, you're helping so many of them kind of redefine their message and make sure it gets out there very clear, because that is super important.
Yeah, and it's something that I had to do for myself too. I loved working in TV news, for years, and then I thought, okay, what's next? I love this, but I need to see what the next thing will be. And something that was really helpful for me, it wasn't actually a list, but it was a letter. It was an email that I wrote to myself, and I'll never forget. I was working in Midtown, and took a quick little break, and I walked outside, and I thought, I sat on a bench, and I thought, okay, if I'm sitting here in 1 year from now, I will be so upset at myself for not having done something to change what's going on right now in my career, in my life. And so I went back to my desk and I wrote myself a letter, an email that I had scheduled to send in a year. And I said, this is how you're feeling right now. You're feeling like you're meant for something bigger, like there's something more for you. You have laid a lot of great groundwork and you're not letting it be realized because the thing that has sustained you for so long, this career, is actually now holding you back. So I hope that when you read this letter, you have done something. And that is it. I sent the letter to myself, to be easy, or email, had sent, and I totally forgot about it. I got it a year later and I was like, what is this? Who sends letters to themselves? So I opened it up, and by that time, I had given my notice. I had put the wheels in motion to start my own business. I already had clients waiting for me when I came out of. So that was such a big intention setter for me. And it's something that I talk about in my newest book, Listful Living, because I tell everybody to do this wherever you are. I mean, it doesn't have to be so dramatic, like you're going to start a new career and you start a business and all that, but tap into how you're feeling right now and remind yourself of that, because you'll forget. And we just all go back to status quo. And it's like, this is what it is, and this is what I'm dealing with.
It's okay. First of all, your next book is going to be called Dear Paula. That's what
I
it should
love it.
be. And it should be, seriously, it should be you talking about that, because that is life altering to think about that, like how I changed my life. I mean, you did that in a very finite amount of time. And I think that a lot of people are afraid. And if I go think back, sometimes I go through my phone and I'm like, oh, where was I a year ago? Oh my gosh, I felt like I was going to have my book published. I felt like I was going to have my documentary done. And you don't realize what happens. I mean, this past year, I think, is a little bit different. I think we can all give
Sure.
ourselves a bit of a break. However, it has given us room for thought. We have seen droves of people leave the workplace because they've decided that that's not how they want to live their life anymore. We've seen a lot of women forced out of the workplace because they cannot juggle family and children and working, and this pandemic made us rethink a lot. Talk
Yeah.
about what you're doing as a media coach and a productivity expert to try to help people get their message out there, because I think I could tell you your message and you could probably tell me my message, but we can't always tell ourselves, who we are out there and how we present ourselves.
Yeah, it's true. And training as a TV producer, right? As you're pulling people in for stories and things, and maybe they pitched you one idea and they said, "Oh, this is what I can talk about." And then when you get them and you chat with them, you're like, "Actually, this is a better, more interesting story." And so that is sort of the way that I look at things for everyone, because you do have that blind spot. You have that it's hard to pinpoint it for yourself. But media has changed. It used to be just television, radio, podcasts, that kind of thing. Even podcasts are new, but it's it's now Zoom calls, meetings, there's so much more to it. And I've found that, especially during the pandemic, my clients have said, look, I need to know how to present during this conference that's happening virtually. And this is not going away. This is not something that, now everybody's going to go back in person again. You and I have been dealing with video and cameras and whatever for our entire careers. We're like, this is not new, people. Everybody's gonna catch on, and they're never gonna go back. Believe me. So being able to help people find that confidence to really get your personality to come across, and also your thought leadership. As you're thinking of what do you want to be known for, what are the things that maybe you'll talk about in your second career or third career or whatever it is. People need to see you. There's an intimacy with video where they'll feel like they know you. And I'm sure you, as an anchor for years, have had people come up to you and say, "Oh my gosh," and feel like they know you and you've never met them before, but they feel really comfortable around you because they're connected to you in some way on video.
But it's interesting, even though that has happened, it wasn't until I started getting on and doing these real talks where
Yeah.
people could see my curtains or they could see my, lights, whatever it is behind me, whatever I would show them, where they felt that they actually knew me and we were having real conversations. And I think that that's interesting. So I think the authenticity of that is, has really changed. And quite frankly, for you and I mean, for me, it wasn't that easy to move into that and be like, "Hey, here's the real me outside of tons of makeup." And I mean, I still have to put my lashes on today just because I'm still, but
You gotta do what you gotta do.
gotta
Come
do
on
what you do. But I do feel like that has changed things, and it really has made people get to know you a little bit better, which is going back to your point about how you figure out your message to the world. It can't be something somebody else gives you. It can't be something that somebody else markets for you. You have to really believe what it is. And it has to be because you want to get up every day and do that, whatever that thing is.
It's true. And everyone is their own producer now. Right. And this has taught us all, there's no makeup crew coming in, you got to figure it out yourself. You got to do it all and make it to the best of your ability. And that's okay. If it's your background's not perfect or whatever it is, this has been the great equalizer in so many ways to be able to show, hey, everybody is still learning how to do this. Everybody it needs a little help. And also, I have to say, I'm probably less, forgiving than most people as far as having cats and kids and things running back into behind people's backgrounds because of our background in television. This is something you would make sure would never happen, but now as we've gone further along, that becomes less tolerable for other people now as well. It used to be funny and cute and cool and whatever, and it's like, oh, you have that cute cat. Now it's a little different. Now it's sort of like, all right, everybody wants to up their game a little bit on video now.
So what do you recommend to people? You've got somebody, and we talked about second chapters. I talk about it a lot. I turned 50 this year. I'm going through a lot of changes mentally, physically,
Sure.
And those are scary, but a lot of people are trying to figure out what that next chapter is and figure out what their messaging is. What do you suggest to people that are trying to sort that out and they're at that in-between place where you were? They're on the bench. They want to be able to read an email in a year, and they want to say, like, I've done some kind of change. What do you recommend to them?
I suggest a list. I can't help myself, but a list is really a great way to start. And also, make a list of those things that really light you up, that make you feel like you're not working, that make you feel like you're the expert, that make you feel like, oh, I'm being helpful. One of the things I tell people often who, want to pitch media or want to start their own videos or whatever it is to think about how can you be of service to other people, to an audience of people. Not how can you be more famous or how can you get yourself out in the world in a better way or whatever it is. It's how can you be of service? What is it that you know uniquely that you can help people with? So make that list, and it could be an ongoing list, and you don't have to do it all at once. As you think of things, as you do things in your day, stop and record it. I started doing that early on when I first started my business, of the things I didn't like to do. The types of clients I actually didn't like to work with. Afterwards, I would write it down and say, note to self, don't take on those types of clients again, and because again, you forget and you just tolerate these things, but you really want to produce a life that is best serving to you and most enjoyable.
I couldn't agree more. People get afraid to do it as they get a little bit older. 50 seems to be a big turning point. We talk about it a lot. Coming up next, I said it every night. You wrote it every night. But it really is like, what's coming up next in our lives? Because that is a question that we ask ourselves. And I don't know that we had the luxury of years a long time ago, and I feel like that has changed. When you look at that with somebody and you say to somebody, they want to get their message out and they need the media coaching. What is it that you provide to them that they need? Because I think it's important for people to realize that it's not just about jumping on a Zoom and talking. It's about producing what you're going to say and what your message is going to be.
A lot of people think, oh, I'll be great when the camera goes on. It'll be fine, and it's not always the case because you haven't trained yourself to speak in sound bites, which is what we know as, TV producers. And so often I will work with people to have them go through what I call the accordion method. And it's a way of creating sound bites, basically starting with a headline, so that if you're able to say and answer that question in one line, what would you say? If it was just a headline, that's all that I heard, that's all I had time to hear, I got value out of it. If you have more time, you pull that accordion open, we got a little bit more. Maybe you give me an example. And then we have more time, you pull it open even further. But that first 10 seconds of what you said is gold. People aren't used to speaking that way. They're used to, writing and then having a conclusion sentence that wraps it all up. But that's not how video works. We want that most important thing first. And it takes time for people to sort of get in that groove. I've been doing this for a very, very long time, knowing that this is the headline we need to tell people right off the bat. So it takes a little bit of practice, but, also coming into your own as an expert, being able to say, hey, I have the confidence to say what I know and do it with a lot of confidence. I find a lot of the women that I work with are a little bit sheepish sometimes about being as vocal as they should. And I think the video in this way, remote video, is really helpful, because now anybody can do it. You have no excuse anymore.
There's no excuse. You need a microphone and you need to turn the button on and maybe stick some headsets in. I keep playing with these 3 words and I'm not sure where they go, but it's unlock your bold. And it's because I keep thinking that there's this place between being afraid, right, over here, where you're a little afraid, and then you see these people that get to that other place, and what's that little thing in between is like they unlock something and walk through it. It's not fear. It's not fearless, because we're all afraid. Like I'll never say I'm fearless about anything, because I'm not fearless. I have a lot of fear about a lot of different things, but I do think that at some point you move to the other side, right? And I don't know what that takes, but I do understand that when you're clear on your message and at least you've practiced it a few times and you see that it is of service to people, I feel like that's where you can unlock that bold.
And the key there is practice. And I think that's what stops a lot of people, because they think, oh, I should just know it. I should know what I stand for. I should know what my opinion is. I should know. No, this takes time to develop. This is something that you're going to practice, that you're going to talk about. Even when I've been promoting my books, right? I wrote them. And a lot of times I'm like, that wasn't the best way to describe it. The next time I do the next interview, I'll describe it like this. It's a work in progress. And then you finally get to the point where it's like, oh, this is what it is, So don't feel like you have to have it figured out from the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think you could get really frustrated with yourself and think I'm not an expert. I have nothing to say to people. And we've done it. We've done it ourselves. And I could look at myself if I'm somebody else and say, like, here are your expertise, but I can't do it to me. So I think oftentimes it's nice to have somebody else's lens, and you provide that for people to say, like, here's who you are, here's what you're doing, and here's where your message sounds the best. I don't know that people realize this, but as producers and as journalists, we hear those sound bites immediately, right? Like
Oh, for sure.
I know who somebody is immediately and what their message should be immediately. How do you teach that to somebody to figure out their own message?
Part of it is just the awareness of it. People don't listen to other people speak in the way that we do because we're listening for that crisp, concise, practical advice or whatever it is that we're looking for. They're not trained to do that yet. So part of it is just showing them that it's there. That's the first piece. And then being able to show it over and over and over again because there's so many examples of it. Anytime I watch the news, anytime there's a clip on YouTube, I'm like, see, that is exactly how, and they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. So it's just that piece of being aware of it and showing people what it is that you can't unsee it. When it's one of those things where it's like, now we've uncovered it. It's like now you're gonna radar and find it every single time.
You're right, though. Your ear is attuned to it. That's it. That's what you hear, and that's what it is. Paula, it's always so good to talk to you. I feel like I could talk to you forever. Tell me where people can find you, though, because I know you give out a lot of free tips as well. I know you're doing a lot of different things, and I highly recommend your books.
You're so sweet. Thank you. If you go to paularizzo.com/checklist, I have a checklist on how to become a go-to media expert. And that includes media. We're talking about TV media, traditional media, or doing your own videos. And, you can check out my books, Listful Thinking and Listful Living. And I'm a LinkedIn learning instructor. So I have a whole bunch of videos on productivity and list making if you go to linkedinlearning.com.
I love it. Thank you so much. And guys, you can join the conversation with me on social media at Tamsen Fadal. Visit me at tamsenfadal.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, hit that, it's that little bell up there and be the first to know when there are new episodes coming up. And if you're listening to our podcast, leave a review because that means so much. And let me know who you want to hear from. People like Paula. I hope today's show has encouraged you to unlock your bold, and I will see you next time.